Every year I generate around $8 to $10 million for clients, with some products making in excess of around $1 million at launch.
That's Gareth Evans, the mastermind turning Ali Abdaal's content into cash, and a lot of it.
You don't really need like a massive audience to start working on a product or start selling a product or service. Like, you just need proof of demand.
Gareth has worked with some of the biggest names in the educational space, helping generate multiple 8 figures with digital products. In this video, he's going to walk us through the strategy he used to do it, including how to find the right product to sell.
The sweet spot I find for the perfect product is finding an idea that offers
how to attract leads.
I think the first thing to mention here is like, not all views are created equal.
And the easiest funnel for beginners to get started.
If I were a beginner and trying to create a simple funnel for a low ticket product, I'll have something that looks a little bit like this.
If you want to build a business off the back of your YouTube channel, and especially if you don't have many subscribers yet, make sure you grab a notebook because he's going to be dropping some serious gold. Let's get into it. Do you want to tell us a little bit about you, who you are, who you've worked with, and yeah, what you're up to at the moment?
Absolutely. Nice. Well, I'm Gareth, and I build and sell products for some of the world's biggest online creators. And every year I generate around $8 to $10 million for clients, with some products making in excess of around $1 million at launch. And I've pretty much seen everything it takes to build a product and sort of bring it to market and sell it at scale, essentially. So, for example, over the last few years, I've been working with a bunch of different clients like Ali Abdaal, who's currently the world's biggest productivity YouTuber with over 6 million subscribers, helping him to build a whole host of different products, from courses to community programs and stuff like that. In particular, I sort of built out a suite of courses for him that at its peak was making it around $2 million each year. And recently I built his first ever productivity community membership, which is called Productivity Lab, which has easily made over like $1 million since we launched it 6 months ago. So yeah, I've sort of seen it all, and I do everything from product design and product development to creating marketing campaigns and bringing things to market, essentially.
I'm a big fan of Ali. In fact, he's one of the reasons I started on YouTube. And yeah, it's so impressive of everything that you've achieved, and yeah, just being able to talk to basically the mind behind Ali's products. He's been widely successful on YouTube. So yeah, thank you so much for being here with us on a Saturday. So the way I wanted to sort of organize this conversation, I mean, I've never done digital products. I have a YouTube coaching service, but I've never had my own sort of little product. And roughly, like, from my limited knowledge of digital products, I think what we need is essentially a product or something to sell. Then we need clients and a way to find them. And then we would need some sort of funnel to just get people off of, whatever social media platform we're choosing to promote our products on, and then funnel them into our offer. So I think roughly those are the 3 things that I wanted to talk about, the 3 elements or ingredients that we need to make our digital products successful. But do you think that's accurate, or would you like to add anything else to our conversation?
Yeah, I think this is broadly the correct approach. So I would start with those 3 things, where we have like a good offer to begin with. So what is the product and what is the packaging of that product? And then once you have the product and packaging, you want to think about what is the market. So like, do you have people to sell to, and is there a market need for said product? And finally, like, thinking about the broader sales funnel. So like, do you have an effective way to present your offer to the market and let people transcend through the various products and offers that you have? So yeah, I think this is a pretty good framework to start with when it comes to having this conversation, for sure.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make it as simple as possible for someone who's never done this digital product thing. So first of all, and I think this is a question that many creators have, how would you decide what to sell? How do you go about that, and do you involve your audience in the process? Is that a good idea?
I think the first thing to mention is like, there are many ways to monetize as a creator. Like, I've already mentioned digital products, so like courses, communities, coaching programs, but we can also sell physical products, paid newsletters, different software like apps. For example, Chrissy Chella has a fitness app that I think got over 200,000 downloads and made over $1 million in its first 8 months of being live. But beyond that, we can also make money from ads, affiliate sponsorship agreements. So yeah, there's like a ton of ways of actually making money. So we don't just need to think about products per se, but yeah, in terms of actually the framework when deciding what to sell, the first and best step I've always found is to speak to your audience, as they're probably like the best coal mine for product ideas, essentially. To be honest, you should be involving your audience in every step of the product development process and constantly getting feedback from them as you build out your thing, but at the very least, you should involve your audience at that initial ideation phase. And there are like two ways in which we can do this. There's what I call the mass survey, which is probably the easiest way to do this. And the idea behind the mass survey is that we want to get like general feedback from our audience about their problems and solutions related to your niche. For example, if you're a fitness creator, your survey might ask, what's the hardest part about sticking to your fitness goals? Or what problem, if solved, would lead to the greatest increase in your quality of life? Basically, we're like asking these meaningful questions, prompting people to share their sort of struggles, aspirations, and desired outcomes, which is going to be really, really useful when we start thinking about what we actually want to sell. The second way to involve our audience is to actually get on calls with people. And my recommendation is to speak to like 8 to 10, or the more the better, but like at least 8 to 10 people who are super engaged with your survey and just get them to expand on their responses. So again, the point here is just to really talk about, well, it's not really to talk about your ideas, but it's more just to let them share their insights about their life and to pinpoint their struggles. And so all of this is really like a data gathering exercise that I always use when helping a creator figure out what to sell, because the foundation of any successful product is a real problem that your audience is actively struggling with. So once I've spoken to the audience, you then want to start compiling all these recurring pain points you've uncovered from your survey and conversations, and by brainstorming like other problems that your audience may not have mentioned yet. For example, if going back to the fitness creator example, some problems could be, I don't have time to work out, or I don't know how to, I don't know, create a sustainable routine, or I lose motivation quickly, and stuff like that. So you just sort of want to compile all of the problems that you've gathered into one long list. And this is the starting point for creating any decent product. So step two then, once you've got the list of problems, is that you want to start framing them in solution-oriented terms. So instead of just focusing on pain points, think about what a successful outcome looks like for your audience. For example, I'm going to keep going back to this fitness creator example, I think. The problem of I don't have time to work out could be reframed as, how can I help my audience build a 15-minute daily workout routine that actually works for their busy schedule? So this reframing of each problem keeps the focus on the audience's desired transformation and will like substantially help you to generate better product ideas, which is like where you can like properly let your creative juices flow when it comes to thinking of the ideas. So when thinking of the solutions to each of these problems, you want to be as divergent as possible and brainstorm multiple solutions to each product. So at this stage, you're not really interested in like how realistic or how practical it is to deliver the product idea. You're just going to get those thoughts down on paper. So again, using the problem of I don't have time to work out, some solutions could be creating a 15-minute workout plan ebook, or I don't know, build a habit tracking app with rewards for consistency, or launching a 7-day fitness challenge with live accountability check-ins. Like, you can think of so many different examples. And then once you have all of these ideas on a page, you've got maybe tens or hundreds of ideas. You can start narrowing them down by evaluating their potential value versus the cost to create and deliver them in terms of time, money, effort, and stuff like that. And the sweet spot I find for the perfect product is finding an idea that offers high value to your audience while being relatively low cost for you to produce. So, in other words, you're looking for a product that solves a big problem and creates a significant outcome for your audience while not requiring too much upfront investment in terms of time, effort, energy, and all these things. For example, building an app is a high value, but it's also relatively high cost. So probably not a great first product for most people. Whereas like an Excel template or a Google Sheets template, if you use that instead, that helps people to track their calories and their macros and then pumps out like a bunch of different like meal plans for you, could be relatively low cost while also being pretty high value too.
Thank you for giving us that outline. So I think the approach, like from the point of view of creators, is just, I think this is the solution that my followers need. I'm just going to create this, and then they spend so long working on a product that at the end of the day it's not going to sell because they haven't actually taken the time to do the due diligence and do the actual research with getting on calls with people. I was recently listening to an interview with Daniel Priestley, who I think has done podcasts with Ali as well, and he's essentially a many figure entrepreneur. He's exited about 10 businesses for millions essentially. And he was saying how before launching a new product, they will get on a call with at least 30 people, and that's someone who's already, a millionaire, just do their research and see if the product could actually solve a problem and be helpful. So I think that's probably a really good thing to do. The other thing that I wanted to ask, I was thinking, was as you were saying all of that, would you then start with something that's relatively low ticket or rather with a high ticket product? Because I've heard conflicting things. There's people saying that when you do not have that many followers because you're just starting out, you should focus on selling to the rich, and selling high ticket products because you don't need to sell that many to, make a decent income. Whereas you can start selling lower ticket once you have a larger audience and you can actually scale a little bit more. What do you think about that?
Yeah. My advice here somewhat changes depending on a number of circumstances, but I think the short answer is that your value is much higher than you think to a small number of people. So don't undersell yourself. Now, this perspective, I guess, ties directly into this concept of virtuous versus vicious cycles of pricing and how pricing affects perception, demand, and like long-term sustainability too, which, should also, I think, encourage you to charge a little bit more. So a little bit higher on the spectrum of things. So let me explain this in a bit more detail. The idea is that when you price yourself too low, you risk creating a vicious cycle. Low prices might be somewhat attractive to people, might be somewhat attractive to your audience to begin with, but they often attract people who are slightly less invested in your product or service and expect even more for less. And ultimately, this can lead to this sort of like decreased perceived value, as people often associate these low prices with lower quality, regardless of the actual value of what you're offering. It can also lead to burnout because you're like overworking to meet the demands of a larger, less engaged audience, and also a degree of unsustainable growth because your lower revenue also means fewer resources to reinvest in improving the offer and like improving the operation, improving the product, and things like that. Whereas if you like price your products a little bit higher on the spectrum, it sort of fosters this virtuous cycle. Basically, higher prices will signal like higher quality and exclusivity, which will attract like a more appreciative audience, and then customers who are like more financially invested and emotionally invested will sort of engage more with the product and service, and then these higher margins will of course allow you to improve and scale and sustain your business long term too. So the key is kind of recognizing that while not everyone may be able to pay sort of premium prices, there's a segment of people who will see enormous value in what you provide. And by focusing on serving that audience at a price point that reflects your worth, you create this positive feedback loop where your pricing supports your growth and their experience. But having said all of that, pricing is always this kind of tricky thing to get right. For example, you may be able to charge more if you're targeting a very specific niche audience, a richer demographic of people, and have some skill and knowledge that is like highly sought after. So pricing largely comes down, and like the way in which you price your products largely comes down to what I call a value-based process. In other words, most people tend to focus on what their product costs or what their competition is charging, but these kind of approaches, like cost-based pricing and competition-based pricing, don't always capture the full picture of what your product or service might be worth and probably is worth to the right audience. So the most effective pricing strategy for any creator is this value-based approach. For example, if your product, let's say it's a course, helps someone land a $100,000 a year job, then that's going to be worth far more money than potentially the few hours that it cost you to create the content in the first place. Or if your productivity tool saves someone an hour a day, like what's an hour of someone's time worth over the course of a year? Probably a lot more than just $10 or $20. So the key mistake that many creators make is just undervaluing their work. They think, why would someone pay me $500 when my competitor charges $200? Or like, why would someone pay me $1,000 for consulting when I only have 100 subscribers? But the truth is, you can charge more than you think. Like, people are willing to pay for high value products, especially if it's like solving a pressing problem, going back to what I mentioned before. And secondly, you don't need to sell to everyone. Like, by targeting a smaller, more committed audience, you can sell fewer units at a higher price and still come out ahead, essentially.
Would you say there is a like a minimal viable audience, or like a certain point in your social media journey or in the growth of your channel or your account in whatever platform where you would start thinking about selling products, or would you start selling from the very beginning?
The short answer is that you don't really need like a massive audience to start working on a product or start selling a product or service. Like, you just need proof of demand. But you do need to think somewhat strategically about your audience, your niche, and product alignment. Probably like before diving into building too much of a big audience, if you can. Like, it's not the end of the world if you don't, but ideally you would. So let me try to explain this. Firstly, you kind of want to start with solving a problem. Like, as I mentioned before, everything goes back to problem solving. The foundation of any great product or service isn't like the size of your audience, it's the size and urgency of the problem that you're solving, okay? And you want to think about, like, what problem am I solving for my audience by creating content? How painful is this problem? Are people willing to pay to solve this particular problem? And if you can answer those questions, you don't need a massive audience to start. If even with a small audience, if the problem is like kind of urgent and kind of painful, then people are going to pay for that. Like, you don't need millions of people. You need like 10 or 50 or 100 people with a problem they'll pay to solve. So you can start small and solve big problems and then scale from there. Secondly, I would say, like, it's better to have a small engaged audience than a large passive one. The reason for this is because an engaged follower will trust you, they're more likely to buy from you, and they will give you like the relevant feedback to refine your product. For example, if you have 1,000 followers and 10% engage deeply with you, you're going to have 100 potential buyers. If you have like $1,000 course, that's $100,000 in revenue, and that's without having millions of people following you. So like, with 1,000 followers, there's a world in which you could be making $100,000 in revenue if they are deeply engaged with you, okay? So the goal isn't to like chase vanity metrics like subscribers or follower numbers. It's a tight-knit community of people who know, like, and trust you enough to buy from you. And so, the truth here is that there are like literally hundreds of thousands of creators out there with like a few thousand followers making six figures every year. And there are also some people with 1 million plus followers who are broke because they never really solved a pressing problem in the first place. So the difference is that the successful creators and the ones making money solve problems for their audience, not just focus on growing the audience. Another mistake people make is that they think they need to build a massive audience first and only then create the product. I think this is kind of backwards, and instead what you should be doing is firstly like start creating content that solves a specific problem for a niche audience. Secondly, then engage with that audience to understand their challenges and develops a simple product or service based on what that audience needs, and then use your content to validate and promote that product as you grow. And so building your audience and your product isn't like a sequential thing, it's an iterative thing. So you talk to your audience, create for them, and then let your product and audience grow together.
I have a lot to say about this because I've made that mistake of building a big audience without really thinking about the monetization side of things. I made the mistake of just choosing the wrong niche. Like, my niche was all about personal development and sort of like personal development videos based on science, for example, and looking at studies, sort of like Ali but in Spanish. And I grew my channel pretty quickly because that was a really popular topic, and I also did the part-time YouTuber Academy, so I learned quite a lot about hooks, the structure of videos, and how to make a video go viral in the first place. And I learned all of that very early on, so it was quite helpful in that I managed to grow my audience quite quickly, and my videos were doing really well. But then when I realized that AdSense wasn't really paying me that much, and I started thinking about other avenues for monetization, I realized that my followers weren't there to buy. They were more of they were learning from me. They liked the the idea of having a freebie in the form of a video about a topic that they've struggled with, like productivity or sleep or things like that, like health related stuff. But they weren't the sort of people, the sort of audience who would be ready to invest in a product. I think I made a mistake of thinking about monetization too late in my journey. I had 200,000 subscribers and I started thinking, okay, how do I actually then monetize this and make it worth my time as well? Because I was really enjoying making videos, but yeah, when I started my job as a doctor and I had other commitments, I had to find a way to justify it. It couldn't just be a hobby. I needed to be making a little bit of money from it to justify dedicating time and resources to it. So now what I do with my coaching students, I ask them to think about monetization very early on. If someone's starting a channel with me, I ask them to please consider how they're going to monetize their channel. If that's the goal, if they want to do YouTube as a hobby, then that's good, that's amazing. But if they are hoping to make some money from it, or even a full-time income, because it's more than possible in this day and age, they need to be thinking about monetization early on.
100%. Yeah, like before starting a channel or picking a niche, like if your goal is to make money, there are sort of a couple things that I think about from a product perspective. Like the first one is like, who can you serve profitably would be like the first question. Like the right niche isn't necessarily just one that you're passionate about. Like passionate, I think, is an important thing, and I think enjoying what you're doing is like hella important if you want to do this long term. But it's also a combination of your skill or expertise, having a clear solvable problem, and a thing that people are willing to pay for the solution. So, for example, like if your niche is fitness and you want to make money, it's probably a bit too broad, you know? Whereas, like, if your niche is helping busy dads lose 20 pounds in 90 days, that might be too niche, but it's like specific, it's solvable, and like has a very clear audience too, So you don't need to serve everyone, but you need to like pick a group you can serve deeply and solve like a meaningful problem, and also then dominate that niche too. And then the second question I'd be thinking about is like and it kind of goes back to your question in terms of like whether like there's a certain size of audience we need before we start making a product, but like what is that smallest viable audience for you? Like your minimum viable audience is going to be the number of people you need to make your business work at your price point. So if you're selling a $50 ebook, you're going to need thousands of people before you can make six figures a year. Whereas if you sell a $5,000 coaching program, you only need 20 clients to hit six figures. So the size of your audience doesn't necessarily matter as it does like thinking about kind of what is the business model you're gunning for and what is the niche that you're kind of serving.
Yeah, and the message is also not to think about vanity metrics so much, because as you said, there's people with tiny channels making six figures and more, and people with super large channels making zero. Many
Yeah.
people don't know this, but I used to run this online clothing store as well, like during university, and I would work with many influencers before I was even an influencer or on social media myself, and I learned this lesson the hard way as well, because I would choose people with massive followings and then send them a product to review and to show, basically on Instagram and stories and things like that. And the people with 8,000 followers would sell 10 times more than the people with 500,000 plus, just because their audiences were a lot more engaged. So yeah, you shouldn't really chase virality, but rather like influence and yeah, trust. And what do you think is the best way to funnel people into your offer? Is there something that works better, especially for beginners, like let's say video, or if you're on YouTube, video to webinar, or like video to newsletter, or video directly to your offer? Like, what is the thing that tends to work best, especially if you don't want to have like too many steps or too much complexity in the process?
Okay, so I think there's a long answer to this, and I do want to break it down. And yeah, if you want to stop me at any point, feel free. But I want to first explain like why having a sales funnel is important, and then I want to lead into like kind of what the best sales funnel could be for a beginner potentially. And like you mentioned Daniel Priestley before, and Daniel Priestley is also a friend of mine, and he He's like the king of building sales funnels. Basically, if you haven't read any of his books, I highly recommend you check them out. But basically, great businesses have four types of products that all serve a unique all serve a unique purpose and form the vital elements of a funnel. So like whenever you're thinking about funnels, you kind of want to think about these four different elements. And then once we've gone through these elements, I'll explain kind of where you could potentially start. So firstly, we have these gifts. Now, gifts are essentially free products or resources that you're going to offer to the world without expecting anything in return. So a well-crafted gift can be like the starting point of your funnel because it introduces people to your world and also creates like this initial touch point with you. For example, if you're a YouTuber or a creator, then all the content that you're creating is a gift under this definition. But it could also include like free ebooks or blog posts or podcasts and stuff like that. And the goal of the gift is really to build goodwill, showcase your expertise, and to entice people to explore more about what you do. So the idea is that the more stuff that you put out into the ether, the more chances people have to see and like connect with what you do. And you need exposure and you need people to like what you do before you can even think about getting anyone to buy anything from you. So the first product is gifts, and creating content is a gift. The second step is products for prospects. And these are like low cost, low commitment offers designed for people who want to try out what you're offering without taking a big risk. For example, things like a mini course or a workshop or a $7 ebook. And the focus here is on providing a quick win that solves a small specific problem, demonstrates your philosophy and your value, and warms people up to trust you enough to consider your core offering. For example, you might run a free webinar, which is a gift, and that transitions into a $27 workshop, which is your product for prospects. The workshop could then solve a small but meaningful problem in less than 7 days, making participants more likely to consider your larger offer, which leads me on to the core offer. So the next step in any decent product funnel would be to get people to buy your primary product or service. For example, your coaching program or your course or whatever it may be. And this core offer must deliver like a complete solution to a customer's problem, have a unique methodology or approach, and turn buyers into evangelists who rave about their experience. For example, your core offer might be a $2,000 productivity program that delivers like this full transformation. And by the time the prospect reaches this stage of the funnel, they already trust you because of the gifts and because of the products for prospects. And then this makes it even easier to then for them to invest in an even higher ticket solution, which is your logical next step. So the logical next step, the LNS, is the final step of the funnel. And these are additional offers for customers who have already purchased your core offering, which could include things like an advanced, coaching program or a membership program or some kind of add-on service. Like for instance, if you're like a car, obviously no one probably here is running a car brand or selling cars necessarily, but if you were like BMW or Mercedes, like selling the car could be like the core product, but like, selling car insurance could be your logical next step. Obviously, once they have the car, they're probably going to want insurance and you want to like sort of upsell them to that thing. So the point of the logical next step is that these are highly, highly profitable products. They build deeper relationships and offer a logical progression for customers who want more. For example, after completing your $2,000 productivity program or coaching program or whatever, you might want to, upsell people to a $500 per month membership program. So yeah, your value ladder of gifts, products for prospects, the core offering, and the logical next step is like the backbone of your funnel. But it kind of needs like 3 pieces of glue to work effectively throughout the thing. Firstly, you need like a decent lead capture process. So the funnel begins with capturing leads, like turning strangers into potential customers by collecting their contact information. And this is often done through some kind of lead magnet. For example, your lead magnet might be offering a free guide on how to do well in your exams. So that is a gift. And then the person signs up, gives you their email address, which is the lead capture, and now they're in your funnel, ready for nurturing, and then like you can sort of progress them through the funnel. The second piece of glue in this is like facilitating sales conversions once leads are warmed up through the gifts and through the products for prospects. And this can kind of take several forms depending on your offer. So webinars or live events, like these are great for transitioning prospects into the higher ticket offers. You can have email sequences, So these like nurture leads with valuable content and lead them to your core offer. You can also have one-to-one sales calls, and these are especially effective for high-ticket offers and coaching programs or courses. So Ali, for example, runs his part-time YouTuber accelerator program, which is like $5,000 or $6,000 for 6 months work with him. And then we always have like a one-to-one sales program with anyone who's interested in applying for that program. So yeah, we don't just want to waste too much time selling to cold leads. We want to use our gifts and products for prospects to warm them up so they're pre-sold by the time we sell to them using some kind of sales conversion event. And then the final piece of the glue is the servicing process. So the idea is that once someone buys the product, the relationship isn't over. It's just the beginning, and you actually want to offer, or you want to over deliver on your core offering in the long term, essentially. Anyway, to bring this back around, so I think I've gone off on a bit of a tangent. What is the simplest way for someone to implement all of this? Well, if I were a beginner and trying to create a simple funnel for a low ticket product, I'll have something that looks a little bit like this. Firstly, I'd have some kind of lead magnet. So this is my gift. So I would offer something for free and valuable to collect leads, like a cheat sheet or a guide or a short video. For example, if you're a study tuber, you might have a cheat sheet on the 3-step formula to study smarter, not harder. So you'll be creating a lot of free content around like studying and have like a nice little like lead magnet that people can download for free. Then you want to nurture them with like some kind of quick win video. So after they sign up, direct them to a short, high-value video that introduces who you are, explains a key pain point, that they're struggling with, and demonstrate that you can solve it. So they download the lead magnet, then they see like a video that can come to their inbox by an email, or they can be like forwarded to a particular page on your website, whatever it may be. They see a video from you, kind of explaining a bit more about who you are and how you can help them with their problems. And then at the end of that video, you have a call to action that can either send them to a sales page or it can be on that page itself, asking them to sort of pay for a product for prospects, something like a $27 mini course or an ebook or a workshop. And then off the back of that, you can always sell them something a little bit more expensive and lead them through the sales funnel. So that's like a low ticket funnel that could potentially work. Alternatively, if your goal is to sell something a little bit more higher ticket, like a service or a coaching program of some kind, I think a webinar funnel is a beginner-friendly, high-conversion approach that could work really, really well. And the idea here is that you want to offer them a lead magnet of some kind that gets them in the door. And the lead magnet in this instance would be the webinar. So like, join my free masterclass, the 5 secrets to acing your exams in half the time. And this webinar could be a live webinar, so that you actually sit down and speak to people on camera live, or it's a self-serve thing, which you just deliver straight to their inbox. Doesn't really make a difference. Live webinars will convert better, of course, because there's more engagement and interaction, but you could also just like pre-record a webinar and then just deliver that straight to their inbox. And then in the webinar, you kind of want to teach them something valuable, like give them some sort of quick win. You want to share your story and build trust, like why are you the person to tell them this? And also present your core offer as like the important next step in their journey to, achieving their desired transformation. So you want to end that webinar with a strong call to action to buy your course, your coaching program, whatever it may be. And so, yeah, those would be 2 potential sales funnels that I would think about, but it can get as complicated or as simple as you like, I suppose.
Yeah, I really like those approaches because you're basically selling in private. You're giving value and free stuff in public and then selling in private. I think it's quite hard for someone who's just met you on YouTube to, jump straight into your offer. And yeah, with a little gift or even a product for prospects, something that's low ticket and basically no brainer pricing, you can sort of invite them into your world and they can, if you manage to provide a lot of value for the price of that low ticket product, you build a lot of trust. And do you think YouTube is the best platform to do this, to funnel people into your audience? Or would you say short form platforms or even a podcast would be better?
In my experience, I think all forms of content play a role in helping you to sell your products. So I don't think anyone should overthink what product, what sort of form of content that they should be producing, because all of it will compound over time. If your talent is in writing, then blog posts are going to be fine. If your talent is in YouTube, like long form YouTube, then that's absolutely fine. If your talent is in reels and short form content, then that's also absolutely fine. But from my experience, and I may be somewhat biased because most of the people that I work with are YouTubers, I do find that the long form YouTube content is some of the best content to build trust, generate leads, and actually convert into sales, especially that like the higher ticket the product is, because it's very hard to get someone to convert from like a reel or a TikTok into like a $500 or $1,000 coaching program. Whereas if they like seen you for like, you know, half an hour in a YouTube video or like many hours across multiple videos, then they're more likely to develop that deep rooted trust to actually buy from you later on. So yeah, like in my opinion, like selling isn't, well, not just my opinion, I guess it's just a hard fact. Selling isn't just about the offer, it's about trust. And YouTube gives you like more time than almost any other platform to build that trust. Like with long form content, you can, like, people will binge that content, spending hours with you and your like personal brand. You can educate, you can entertain, you can pre-sell them on like your personal philosophy before they've ever seen your offer, and they also like feel like they know you far more than sort of any other content. And I think like trust is the currency of high ticket sales. Like the more time someone spends with you, the easier it is to sell. And I just think that YouTube is unparalleled in creating that connection. And then unlike other platforms like Instagram or TikTok, where the content largely disappears after a few days, YouTube is basically a searchable content library. It's just Google in video format. And a video you post today can generate leads and sales for years and years to come. For example, someone could search how to build a business and then find your video from 2021. They'll watch it, they'll love your content, and then end up buying your course. Like that's an evergreen funnel. So YouTube to me isn't just like content; it's an investment, and done right, it can compound over time like any other asset. And the final point to make here, I guess, is like YouTube audiences are very high intent. When someone watches a 20-minute video about solving a specific problem, they're already primed to take action. Whereas, like, if you contrast that with Instagram or TikTok, where people are like mindlessly scrolling in bed or in the bathroom, whatever it may be, like, they're not really in the right mindset to buy. So YouTube, to me, and long form YouTube especially, gives you like the perfect mix of and intention. Attention and intention. It's like you're not just interrupting someone's feed, you're like solving a problem while they're looking for answers. But having said all of this, I wouldn't necessarily just focus on YouTube. If you can do so, like if you have capacity to do other platforms and like do other things, then I would 100% do that. But in terms of like what I think about here strategically would be like the audience. Like, is my audience spending more time on other platforms? For example, if you're targeting professionals and like B2B, products, then of course like LinkedIn might be a better platform than YouTube. Or if you're targeting Gen Z, like maybe TikTok could make more sense than YouTube. Like who is your audience and where are they? You also don't have to choose just one platform in the sense that you can repurpose your content quite easily. Like the good thing about YouTube videos or long form YouTube videos is that you can just take clips from that and post them on Instagram or on TikTok, or post the key insights from your videos onto Twitter. Like the good thing about having a YouTube video is that it's kind of like the trunk of a tree. Like it's like the pillar content, and then you can sort of branch out multiple pieces of content from that core thing. Whereas like if you create short form content, you can't just turn that into a 10-minute video. Well, you can do, but you have to sit down and film again. Whereas like having a long video, you can potentially just cut it up into shorter form pieces of content. And the final thing here is like the platform strength. Like different platforms will serve different purposes in your funnel. So YouTube will be great for building trust and for educating. Instagram and TikTok is great for driving awareness and excitement and getting lots of views and getting like content in front of lots of people. And then email and like website content is great for closing the sale as well. So each platform kind of has its superpower. You want to use YouTube to like nurture and pre-sell, but then like let Instagram or email sort of bring them across the finish line.
Okay, so ideally do a bit of everything if you can and have capacity. This reminds me of the I don't know if you know about the 7-11 rule with the, time and interactions. I
Yep.
think there was this study, I think it was done by Google or something, trying to work out how many hours or interactions you need to have with your client to sell them your product. And the conclusion said that you need at least 7 hours spent with your clients or 11 interactions. And, interactions you can achieve on Instagram or TikTok or even, through any sort of short form content quite easily. But I think in terms of actually spending hours with your ideal client, YouTube is probably the best platform at doing that. And as you say, you're offering a solution when they're already looking for it, so it's a lot easier to sell.
100%. Yeah. The other element of that rule, I think it's the 7-11-4 rule. So it's 7 hours of content on with 11 different interactions, and the final bit is on 4 different platforms. So like if they see you on multiple different platforms, like the more likely they are to trust you, the more likely they are to believe you, the more likely they are to engage with you, and therefore the more likely they are to buy from you as well. So yeah, like that's another sort of like reason to be on more platforms if you can, but don't spread yourself thin. Like that's also a really crucial point to make. If you only have capacity to build a YouTube channel or only have capacity to write blog posts, that's absolutely fine. The worst thing you can do is be mediocre on multiple platforms rather than just great on one platform.
I need to apply that to myself. Shameless plug, I've just started an Instagram account. I will link it in the description so you can follow me if you want to interact with me. I post pretty much the same thing, but also some, different things on there. So yeah. And I also want to give you the opportunity to do your own shameless plug because you've been really, really helpful. I don't know if there's anything else that you want to discuss, but I just want to give you an opportunity to just tell us where to find you, because I know you're launching or have already launched an agency to help other YouTubers and social media creators launch their own digital products. So if you want to tell us a little bit about that and just, do your own self-promotion bit.
Thank you. Yeah, so at the moment, most of the work that I do for creators is through my agency Launchlab, which helps creators to build and launch digital products to their audience, which usually means courses, communities, and coaching programs. Although I often support creators with a suite of like other collateral services, including developing PDFs, templates, ebooks, and stuff of that nature. At the moment, I like only accept a small number of creators to work with each year to ensure like the service quality remains as high as possible, which is also why I do all the work myself and don't outsource any of the process to anyone. So yeah, if you're interested in working with me or just want to check it out, then there'll be a link somewhere on the screen or in the description below this video. But there's literally zero pressure, as there's like so much you can already do from the advice I've shared in this video before you even consider working with me or working with an agency. So yeah, if you want my help, you can check that out. Otherwise, yeah, good luck, and I wish you all the best with your product creation, basically.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I will link your agency in the description as well for those interested. If you want to continue learning from Gareth, I can send you the full conversation. The link to request it will be in the description. And you can also check out his socials and websites, which will also be linked down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.